The media says that the term gamer is over, that gamers are dangerous bigots, misogynists that don't want women in the gaming industry. But if you ask the gamers, they tell a different story. They want more transparency in gaming media. They want gaming to be about playing games and not social justice. They are frustrated with the censorship, the lies, and the scandals, and they aren't going to take it anymore. Join the Honey Badgers as we discuss Quinnspiracy 2, Electric Boogaloo. As always, the show will be available for download after the broadcast at honeybadgerbrigade.com.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio, radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Tonight's topic is Quinnspiracy 2, Electric Boogaloo. We've got a lot of great, interesting people tonight. We've got, as always, Allison Heeman.
Hi, my name is Allison Teeman, which she just said, but, you know, I gotta make it awkward because that's the thing I do. And,
Hannah Wallen.
You don't want me to say something about myself? Like, what?
Okay, fine. Talk about yourself.
Okay, my name... Oh, I already said my name. All right, so I was one of the original founders of Honey Badger Radio, yada, yada, yada. I do webcomics, Zenaspora.com. Go for it. Now, take it away.
Hannah Wallen.
Hi. I'm not going to try to repeat all of the stuff that I've explained about myself in the past. For this show in particular, I'm going to talk about gaming. And I've been a gamer, not necessarily always a video gamer, but I've been a gamer for, well, most of my life. Pretty much as soon as there were video games, I began playing those. My first console was an Atari 2600. Sort of migrated into tabletop gaming at about high school and have stuck with that ever since. And that's going to be where I'm coming from in this discussion.
Awesome. Crystal Garcia? Crystal?
Me and the mute button. It's a mute button, I swear. We always have this dance.
Our spy pig.
I'm writing 100 Days How to Treat Men Right on the Return of Femininity. And I also admin Loving and Celebrating Men on Facebook. And I am writing the book, Loving and Celebrating Men.
Awesome. We've also got Kat Rocha. Hey there, Kat.
Hello. Yes, I am Kat Rocha. I am the owner and editor-in-chief of 01 Publishing, where we publish the best in sci-fi, fantasy, and horror graphic novels and novels. And we definitely are against social justice warriors. I know that in the sci-fi community, at least, they seem to have taken over, and we give them a big fuck you.
Okay, and we've also got Kristen Chesson from Tales from the Infrared.
Hi. Hi, everybody. It's me. I'm 28. I've been a gamer since I was 3. So, yeah, I've even been a professional gamer on the Counter-Strike circuit. So, let's talk about Gamergate.
We've also got Matthew from the Fine Young Capitalists. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah. Matt's a little confused today, so he may speak less than he did last time. But I'm from the Fine Young Capitalists. We were the group that basically let any woman come up with an idea for a video game, and then we'd give them concept artists to visualize that idea. The internet would choose the best one, and the winner would get made into a real game.
Awesome sauce. So, I slipped and said something dumb. Okay. To give people a little bit of background, here it is. Over the past week and a half, there's been an all-out battle between gamers and the gaming media. What began as a story of infidelity ended up casting light onto corruption within the gaming media. The desire for transparency in game journalism has revealed a vast network of journalists and gaming developers who not only know one another and boost each other, but also fund each other, all of which has been going on unchecked. The response to this has been nothing short of disrespectful, with gaming journalists insulting and dismissing gamers as bigots. After nearly 2 weeks, it's broken onto mainstream media sources, something the gaming media has been trying to prevent by attempting to suppress this information. Now, all sorts of new information is coming forward, consulting agencies, high-profile people funding developers, and connections to well-known indie gaming competitions. There's no telling how deep this all goes or how much will change, but progress is being made. There are news sites writing balanced coverage of these stories. Pandora's box has been opened, and there's no going back. So,
yeah, well, I'm going to start because I've gotten into trouble with this question, and I know now that it is a very stupid question. So everybody, feel free to dogpile on me.
It is not a stupid question.
Stupid.
It is a stupid question. I know it's stupid. Everybody's going to be like, "Oh, fuck you."
It's not a stupid question. It's a necessary question.
Okay, it's a necessary question. Okay, well, I'm going to do the necessary evil then. Why is Zoe Quinn shouldn't be the center of this? Why is she not we should not pay attention to her? And who wants to step up and answer that question?
Who wants to field this question?
Sure, I'll field that question if you'd like. So the main reason that you don't want to focus mostly on Zoe Quinn is that the majority of the focus how it tends to be placed in the media is based upon her sexual history, which the best is that all of this started when her ex-boyfriend released a lot of information about who she'd been engaged in sexual relationships with during their relationship. And unfortunately, as the feminist here, I actually think, the sex that she had is so banal and boring that it shouldn't be mentioned. What was exposed, though, was that there was relationships going on that people were writing about her when there was a relationship going on and it wasn't being disclosed. And that's sort of the larger issue because it exposes many, it's important to mention that some people were writing about her and then paying into her Patreon. And what that basically does is that seems to be a rather large conflict of interest. So the main reason that you see them not referencing Zoe Quinn is that most people like to reference it from her sexual behavior. That wasn't the issue.
Absolutely.
I think that I would agree with that, and I'm not a feminist. So, because I think that the sexual,
we can all agree.
Yeah, the sexual behavior is not. Well, it is the issue in terms of personal morality and not cheating on people, but that is something that's between the people in question. It is actually the conflict of interest. But I know Josh and Chris. Oh wait, actually, Hannah. Sorry. Hannah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and because the conflict of interest and the social justice warrior invasion into nerd culture, geek culture, gaming culture, any aspect really of nerd or geek culture, those are more the real story. And I've said it before, but I don't think I've said it on air before. Zoe Quinn is not. She's not really that. She's just the person that opened the door so you can see what's going on in the room. She's the person that highlighted it, and that's it. That's really all she is. Well, and kind of an attention whore, which you don't want to feed. That's it from me.
Go ahead, Christian.
I mean, Hannah is absolutely right. I mean, the only thing Zoe Quinn did was leave the door open and let us peer into that party. But now that the cat's out of the bag, the real problem is the cat itself. It's not Zoe Quinn anymore. The thing with Zoe Quinn, though, is she does exhibit a lot of the symptoms of histrionic personality disorder. She wants to be the center of attention. And you did sort of see her try to get back to the center of this, but it's not going to happen because it's not about her. It's exploded. It is so much bigger than her. It's the nepotism within the games media and journalism industry. It's the fact that everybody is a friend with everybody else. The journalists are friends and they have personal relationships with the developers of the games that they cover, and they're promoting their friends over other people who they don't know who make equally good, if not better, games. I mean, they're what was it? They placed Depression Quest in the exact same level as a game called Papers, Please. And I've played Papers, Please. I absolutely love Papers, Please. It's an awesome game. Depression Quest is nowhere near it.
Okay, can I just actually explain in context why this is important for people who aren't involved in the industry? Is that okay?
Sure. Yes, please.
Okay,
Sure,
so basically, to explain, video games are a really weird thing because each copy of a video game has no cost. Like, the cost of making another copy once the game is made is usually measured in pennies. So and it's very easy to distribute. So what this means is the main problem in getting your game out there isn't actually making it. It's that you need to be able to market so that people are aware of the game. And this is why you'll see stuff like the iPhone store it has a game market, but you don't see really good games there. And that's because it's so hard and so difficult to be found. Now, what Gamersgate is more about is just people controlling this ability to be found. And the issue is that they are now acting as sort of a gatekeeper or a kingmaker to which productions are actually kind of moved into the mainstream audience. And what's important to understand is that it's pretty clear that people are being given preferential treatment in the circle. And this is actually problematic for two reasons. One, for people outside the circle who can never reach the circle. So, for example, people in South America who just don't have the time or the money to continually attend these conventions can't actually get their work shown. And number two, it's pretty obvious that people are actually monetizing these relationships internally, that instead of providing PR, what they're actually doing is kind of you're paying for protection for them to not cover your material. It's not that they're adding stuff, it's that they're subtracting from the exchange of ideas.
Okay, go ahead, Kat, because I know that you've been waiting very patiently.
Oh, no. Actually, that's great because that segues right into what I was going to talk about. How, Kotaku, Rock, Paper, Shotgun, Polygon, Gamma Sutra especially are all figuratively and literally in bed with, was it Silver String Media? I think the company, I know it's called Silver String, and Maya Felix Kramer. And Maya seems to be, if you're going to point out any person who is a major player or a hub or one of many hubs in all of this, it's her, because she was I believe sleeping with Zoe at one point. She's got let's see.
I'm going to say allegedly, but
yeah. Allegedly, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Please correct me on anything I may have wrong. But,
okay.
She is with Gamma Sutra's editor-in-chief, Leigh Alexander, who is a feminist. It's because of her that, the Indie Game Fest is... basically all of the employees or people involved with them were getting awards and things. And it's really Maya who is the one pulling all the strings.
Well, no, okay, let's break that down.
I overspoke on that. Yeah, I apologize.
Before you concede, why don't we hear Matt's argument?
No, I know. I did. I way overspoke on that.
Yeah,
I misspoke.
It's important to understand that this is the IGF, so this is the independent game something or other. Basically what it is that Silverstring Media, or people who were associated with Silverstring Media, worked on all of the games that were given awards. Some of them were writers, some of them were actually just PR people and media people, but it's that there seems to be always at least one person that is basically 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon to go from Silverstring Media to an IGF winner.
Well, the fact that Sarkeesian's involved.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear this. So how is Sarkeesian involved? Just lay that out.
Sarkeesian is for one thing, if you really want to talk about this, she is absolutely connected to Polygon Media. Her boyfriend writes for Polygon. That's one connection, but I don't. But in terms of Silver String, I would want to hear people talk about. I think I mentioned. I heard that she's somehow connected, or at least uses that as consultant.
Apparently, allegedly, a large portion of her Kickstarter donations went to Silver String.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, but it's more that she's again. It's difficult because the whole thing with Kickstarters is you don't really know where the money went to. Like, I can give you the money that we paid to have Samantha write all of our feminist videos, and you can compare it to bring the money that was brought in. But it seems to be that Silver String is still repping her as a PR, they're providing PR support for her, so that whenever she's releasing a new video, they're providing PR support so that that's being picked up in other media sources.
And apparently, they're also helping her to host retreat workshops for social justice warriors, and promoting dismantling the hegemonic masculinity in the gaming industry.
Yeah, that seems okay. That's the stated purpose of. Let's say say that's the stated purpose of the workshop. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think that you disagree that hegemonic masculinity shouldn't be.
No, you have to understand. Okay, so what was her name again? The person that we're talking about from Silverstream?
Maya.
Maya.
Yeah. Okay. So it's important to mention that she's the person who fucking doxed me. So I know her relatively well. She was actually the person who presented the information that Zoe's she basically replied to it. So this is sort of my relationship with her. But my relationship with her is, you have to excuse me that we've been engaging with those people today, and they've sort of we haven't been treated with a lot of respect today, which is kind of why I said I'm not sure if I should be on this. But it's important to remember that for, say, the fine young capitalist, she was actually given a specific information of what we were doing before the production was going to be launched, before we actually took money. We actually sent her a complete letter of what we were about, what the production was about. She was given the option of terminating the production or changing any part that she wanted to. She did not contact us back. So that's how I kind of have my relationship with her. Zoe was incidentally given us the same information, as well as, let's not throw the third person in who was given that information. But the reason why I say allegedly is that I don't think these particular workshops are really meant to cause social change as much as they're sort of a means to increase the PR focus of the people that are there. And that's just my general experience from what these kind of workshops go to. It's like you're basically giving them too much kind of push. And that if you were focusing on those sort of issues, they'd be doing different things. Like there would be scholarships, for example, would be a major one. The fact that they haven't been pushing scholarships for women so they can get into video game programs is a little suspicious, and that would be something that would be a more effective use of their funds. That's the easiest way to put it.
I see.
Well, I would I want to pick up on some things, and I actually agree that if they're saying they're trying to dismantle hegemonic masculinity, they're not really doing anything of the sort. If we want to talk about it in those terms, I would talk about it in the terms of the types of behaviors that men get sucked into that aren't necessarily healthy for them or anyone around them, and in particular not healthy for them. Like not being able to talk about their vulnerability or have it, and even more importantly, have society recognize it as something that we need to do something about. So yeah, I think we're doing that actually, because we are talking about men's issues and we're talking about men's vulnerabilities, and we're saying, hey, society, you are overlooking these people. But I just wanted to point that out. So I agree with you that these organizations do nothing to challenge so-called hegemonic masculinity.
I want to ask a question.
But, yeah.
I mean, about these workshops, is this more like the kind of a PR situation as that it just looks good on them to attend the workshop rather than anything that's actually happening?
It tends to raise awareness of particular issues, but the main thing it does is it tends to raise awareness of the people that are there, like who's actually attended to them. The reason why is like, they don't like functionally provide, say, documentation on how you should present characters, so that.
I see.
Yeah, like my whole thing is that if you provide like A, B, C, D, E steps, then what you can do is you can actually provide sort of input on how the character can do. And what they kind of do is they make it kind of aware of the issue. So it's kind of like saying, don't set stuff on fire versus, how to correctly do electrical wiring. Sorry, it's like
so it's about as useful as like sensitivity training. It's like, okay, we just want to raise awareness for things, but we're not exactly going to tell you how you can operate in better ways.
It would be.
It sounds more like it's the breast cancer campaigns on Facebook where you're supposed to say how you hang your purse, but not say that you're talking about your purse, where it doesn't actually change anything, but everybody feels good about doing it, and people get a little bit of.
It would be very useful if it was being presented to an audience that didn't already know the information.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, it sounds to me like really these workshops are just echo chambers. They're presented in a way where it's like, yeah, come here and learn how to, write characters in video games, or come here and learn how to critique video games. But it's really just echo chambers for.
Well, I guess I'm gonna do a reference to Monty Python. So, like, John Cleese and them, they toured like years after the Python show was off the air. And they do, like, say, the parrot sketch. And they'd come on, and then everyone would clap, but no one would laugh because they knew the words better than John Cleese did. So they'd clap as soon as he came on stage, and clap as soon as he came off stage, but no one laughed. Well, and I'd like to say, like, again, if it was, like, randomly they were throwing in game developers who had never heard of any of these things, then there would be a change. Or if you were forcing it, like if you were injecting it into the games, or you're injecting it into the media, but it's not. You seem to be discussing the issue with people who already understand the issues, so you're just basically making people who are already aware equally aware.
Oh, wow. That seems counterproductive.
I think it's not the best use of resources. That's my polite way of saying that. I do think that, again, if there was like more dissenting voices, like my biggest issue with these kind of discussions is everybody's agreeing with each other, and anybody who isn't agreeing with them isn't invited.
It's about as useful as pissing on a crash 747.
Yeah, well, it's just. Eventually what happens is the community becomes more extreme because they don't have dissenting voices. So the level of, like, the conflict points become, like, it just keeps going more and more to the left. And that's problematic because it takes away from the reality of the actual situation on the ground. Quite frankly, a video game is still a business to be made, like, it's to make money. If you're doing things that prevent your company from making money, all you're basically doing is making the companies that care about women's issues go bankrupt.
I just want to point something out too. So I actually got a little bit more insight into your process. I see now you're trying to make it so that other people, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you're actually trying to make it so that the industry realizes that female gamers can be profitable as well.
Yes, that's why.
That's exactly what you're doing, so that they can follow in your footsteps and start promoting
they can
women
use
making
underrepresented labor to generate funds of their own. Yes, I know that sounds odd, but when we talk about one of the biggest issues that was happening with these groups is they didn't want the women to make games for money, that this was in some way dirty. And that is, from a perspective of the patriarchy, like, just winning the fuck out of it. Like that's like, again, if we're doing a Magic reference, that's like winning the game by milling the deck. You still won. The pair of people didn't know what you were doing, but you still won. And I just find that these workshops tend to focus around that they don't tend to focus around actually moving women into roles where they can actually engage with business and make money, or more importantly, allow the company to make money by increasing their viewership by allowing more women to like their products.
Yeah,
or to open up a new market for women.
Yeah, I think that's if you want to go about helping women, and like we're about helping men, not against helping women. Yeah. Just maybe a little bit more balance in the helping, but anyway, a lot more balance actually. But that would be the way to do it, is to make women make profitable games. And I'm reminded of something that I learned when I was going through design school. Went to a design conference. They were trying to design products that would sell for third world markets that would had a good price point that people could buy in the third world and improve their lives, but were a business. And the reason why is because businesses are sustainable. Yes. They sustain themselves. If you make it profitable, it has the potential of expanding and becoming a long scale thing. Whereas if you're just constantly throwing money into women as making these non-profit or profitless games, propping them up, they're not going to go anywhere, and they're going to continue to be presented as a failure by the people who want to make money in games.
Well, it's better to point out, and I'm going to quote Audre Lorde on the podcast, a feminist writer. This would be great. The main issue is that it just allows you to have a continual battle. It's a battle that you will never win. And what happens is that means the people who are profiteering off the battle will always be in power. And the subtext of who's involved in creating these conversations, suddenly it becomes a little bit more relevant while I don't kind of walk to their drum. But I do find that if you're the person running this workshop, the ideal situation is for the problem to never be solved.
Yeah. Well, Christian, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, I mean, just taking a step or two back, we were talking about helping women become game developers and actually turn it into a business where they can make money off of it. I mean, even though I'm an MHRA, even though I'm an anti-feminist, I still support your cause at the Fine Young Capitalists, because to me as a gamer, and I'm not speaking as an anti-feminist now, I'm speaking as a gamer, I don't care who's designing the games. More developers means more ideas, means more games are being made, which means more choice for me, ultimately.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to interject really quickly to explain the acronym that Christian just said. MHR or RM is Men's Human Rights Movement. So for anybody new who's listening, that is what the acronym means. And go ahead, Kat. I heard you pipe up.
Yeah, I was just going to agree. Usually I don't go for, gender biased or race biased or any of that programs or anything like that. But when I heard what you were offering, it actually seemed like a wonderful program, and the fact that you're giving to charity, people were getting paid. It just seemed like the equivalent of a Kickstarter, honestly, because people were voting on what was going to get made. So it was still a competition, and a lot of times those things don't have competition. So I really supported what you were doing, and it just broke my heart when I heard that your Indiegogo got taken down and just all of that.
I'm going to bring it back to this, but I just want to explain something like in context of the production, is that one of the things that happens, especially in these women's groups, is they want to be against the old boys club, but what they want to form is a matriarchy. Meaning they want to form a group that's completely run by women and controlled by women. This continually comes up. and why I'm occasionally not invited to those meetings as I self-identify as a man. And one of the things about like why I think that's dumb is you're now cutting out 50% of your market. But more importantly, the whole point of equality is that people can work together. And I really don't see the issue. Like, I really honestly want you to see the women as a means of generating profits. And even if it's a man who's then investing in them. And I just found that a lot of these groups were really against men, like even having input on the women's ideas or even moving them into a way of monetization. And I can actually, I won't, but I can even talk about that outside the game industry. And this is why what I find in these kind of workshops is what you're trying to do is it's very much like a pyramid scheme, but you're trying to place yourself at the top as sort of this matriarchal person. And what's supposed to happen is everybody's supposed to do their work that doesn't really generate money, but they're all supposed to invest in you to continue to go to your workshops and whatnot. And it's just sort of weird that they tend to not be particularly pleasant to people who leave the group.
Yeah.
Especially if they leave the group for business reasons. So like I'm
cult.
working with
Yeah.
really
Exploitative.
Yeah, sort of
Well,
like the ad, eh? Killjoy are I guess a radical feminist killjoy on top of a mound of female bodies, all supporting her. Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to talk about this for a moment. I think to clarify, a lot of, at least on behalf of Honey Badger Radio, I think that we should clarify this. We are not opposed to women's rights. We're actually very much in support of it. And one of the things is that I think that a lot of people in Gamergate had a problem with is I think they absolutely support women entering into gaming and having their place there and being a part of the gaming community, developing games on every part of the process. But I think the problem is that we really want this to be merit-based. We really want people to be able to get involved and do the work and be valuable on their own. And that's, I think, why people have backed you so much, Matthew, because you have been really wanting this to be on merit. Whereas a lot of people, many of the social justice warriors types in here, want things, they're opposed to meritocracy, they're opposed to having to get in, by their own blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, there's a good example.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just bring in Hannah here because she has been waiting very patiently.
Sure.
Sorry, just
Yeah,
put
there's
a
a
note
few
on it.
things that I wanted to address from way back when. One of the things that particularly drew me to the Fine Young Capitalist fundraiser is that I see you doing something that people who claim to advocate for women and don't actually advocate for women can't do and won't ever do, and that is helping to inspire women to learn to work as part of a team. And this is something that's really absent in our society. The idea that achievement is something that you do all by yourself or that is given to you seems to be dumped on women and girls. And if they don't get the whole big prize, the whole first prize on their first try, then they're defeated and they stop. And you've given them the opportunity to do the things they can do and contribute to an effort to bring their idea forward. And I think that's something huge just by itself. And it creates a step that women can use to recall their capability to do things and not just sit back and wait for people to do things for them or make a path for them to have things. And that's one of the biggest things that one of the biggest obstacles for me with organized feminism And I'll refer to organized feminism the same way as I refer to organized religion or big corporations or big government, anything else like that. And that is that in order to maintain their power, they can't afford to have women develop that sense of independence and that sense of capability, that sense of agency, to where we see ourselves as capable of setting things in motion, accepting other people's input into our efforts, working together with other people to achieve a goal, and so on. This is a huge deal.
We blame, okay, so the society thing that we tend to blame is, and this actually kind of rolls back to Zoe a bit, is that we find that women's work suddenly becomes indistinguishable from their lives. So what I mean is like everything has to be internalized, that their work has to be a reflection of themselves. And what that is that makes it very problematic if you're working with other people, as you said. That it's sort of like, this person is so fragile, you should give them the resources, you should let them make whatever they want because it's a reflection of themselves. Where if a man said that, we would be like, that's incompetent and stupid.
Well, this actually goes back to something I've said before on the show, but you weren't really around to hear it. And it's the way that we teach people to value themselves. We have a different way of teaching boys to value themselves than we do girls to value themselves. And we teach boys to see their value and what they can give or do for other people. We teach girls to see their value in other people's response to them. And so girls and boys don't really value themselves for themselves, either one. But girls place their value on kind of their self-esteem. You know, they place their value on other people's responses to them and on how they look and how they're viewed and everything. Whereas boys end up placing their value on the value their sacrifice provides for other people.
Yes, this is exactly it.
And neither one of those things is very functional as teaching people that's their only value. You know, they're both things that people should learn to have in their lives. You want to pay attention to other people's responses to you, and it's important that everybody should pay attention to their impact on other people. In other words, both of those things are valuable, but neither one of them should be all that we are.
And I think on top of that, you have, with this new wave of feminism, this sense of entitlement. None of them actually want to work to achieve anything, from my experience. They would rather whine and, scream that they're being oppressed, and that, that basically the books are everything is stacked against them, rather than actually work to achieve something. And I think that was definitely evident with Zoe.
Actually, the whole thing that Anita Sarkeesian has to say about gaming and women and tropes and all of that is sort of evidence of that sense of entitlement.
Well, it's more that what you're doing is you're actively destroying the network of people that want to help you. Like one of the points about this project and why it seems to be destroying this narrative is that like 4chan and V and Reddit and these sites that were always used as boogeymen suddenly came out to support women in games when we treated them fairly, and then focused on the idea of the women focused on it being the game, like what the game is, what you like. You are supporting women because you like their games, not because women are in some way special.
Yes.
And
surprise.
It was more like I from the description again. I just saw the gender restriction as just that. It's like, well, we just want to deal with these people, but again, you still had the fact that you had to come up with a good idea. You still had to sell it. You still had this competition, and you still had to earn it. And I really liked that. And there's not enough of that when it comes to these social justice warriors and things that are out there. There's not enough competition.
Yeah, the line is that we didn't tell 5 women they were good enough. We told 95 women that they weren't. And that has sort of been like a lot of people had a lot of problems with that issue. And I had to explain that, no, women are tough enough to be told that their idea is great, but it wasn't great enough.
Well, I applaud you for telling people you're not good enough, at least not yet, because more people need to hear that.
But you can never better yourself if you told you have room to improve. If you get told that you're good enough when you're not.
That's not to say, though, that the other women who didn't make the cut for the Fine Young Capitalists, that's not to say that they can't pitch their games elsewhere.
Right.
Many, like the 6th place, the 7th place, they probably have really, really good ideas, too.
We wrote the 6th place winner. She was actually my favorite idea. She just was 1 point lower than we needed, and I actually wrote her and I said, "I'm really sorry. If anybody drops out, you're first on the list." But it's just I just want to bring this back to Anita's work and why I'm sort of neutral about it. Is I find that the kind of message that she gives is what you're doing is you're basically pathologizing you're pathologizing the games that men like. And the issue is that you're basically destroying a support structure there. And it's difficult because a lot of the points that she's given are debatable, meaning that if you're saying that this is a trope, and you're saying a trope is bad because it's being used too often, then I would actually say I support you, Anita, in almost all of these discussions because everything you're talking about is a trope. But if you're talking about it like it's impairing women enjoying the thing, it's like, no, because if you go to television, that's statistically untrue.
Well, I got to point out one thing about women in gaming prior to the discussion about girl gamers, because I've been a girl gamer since. Well, I've just been a gamer. I can't really say I've been a girl gamer, but I've been a gamer since 1980, maybe 1982. God, I can't even remember when the 2600 came out. But when video games first came out, characters looked like a cheese wheel with a wedge cut out and a little black dot on it, and 8 rectangles on the screen, or Space Invaders. I played Space Invaders, Pac-Man. These were not games that even had gender in them. And when you finally got to games that had characters that had storylines, they followed storylines that have been told, and women and girls have enjoyed just as much or even more than men and boys have enjoyed them for centuries. And the idea that suddenly now, because we're using them in video games and a lot of guys are enjoying them in video games, they're bad, is ridiculous and stupid. Women are not impaired by things like this. We're not locked into a lifestyle or a behavior because of things we see in fiction. This is the idea that what she's saying is in any way true about women is essentially the statement that we are controlled by everything around us instead of making our own decisions and determining our own choices and our own likes and our own dislikes and our own attitudes and our own beliefs. It's a ridiculous idea.
What was her famous line? In the game of patriarchy, women aren't the opposing team. We're the ball.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit.
She lies. I mean, like...
No, it's she has a very particular objective, but it's okay. So this is going to be the weirdest place to have this argument, but we're actually against her because how it affects women. In that, I'm going to do porn first because it's easier, and you can read about this in A Billion Wicked Thoughts. But there is sort of feminist porn that's made. And the problem is that if you actually break it down, the women who like pornography watch the same pornography that men do.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the issues with gaming is the assumption is that when you're doing these particular tropes, you're losing your audience because women don't enjoy these particular stories. The argument from the stats that we're pulling, that seems to be incorrect. The women who like these kind of games like those particular types of stories. The one that don't like those particular stories wouldn't engage in the game anyways. It's statistically speaking, there is like a group that wouldn't engage in the game because of the way the story is being depicted, but they're not that statistically significant. So one of the issues that I have with her work is suddenly you pathologize the behavior of the women who like these type of games.
You are definitely pathologizing the behavior instead of understanding it and maybe seeing how you can move from the women who like those kinds of games and encourage other women to adopt the same behaviors. But that seems really Machiavellian, so maybe that's not worth it. But anyway, why would you think that argument was not going to be accepted here? I mean, we are for women's rights, and we're actually also for the idea that men's rights and women's, there is no conflict.
I just find that, like, when we're doing things for television, we have to say, like, Criminal Minds, a show that's basically about women being cut up, has mostly a female audience, as does Hannibal. That you'll find that, like, people who aren't interested in money, like, again, capitalists in television, we do it for the money. That makes it so, like, inevitably speaking, we're bad people because we want to do it for money. You'll find that we have this weird view where what women want to see is completely different than you'll get from a lot of this academic feminism. And it's problematic because you'll find that people will be projecting, like, I don't like this, let's pathologize this as a behavior that's wrong in society. And because free speech exists, let's say that this behavior then causes an effect that, like, men's behavior is bad, so it becomes a public health issue. And it's problematic because it's not statistically shown. And it's also problematic because you pathologize the women who actually like this material. And this is sort of my issue that's with her, and why when she doesn't allow criticism or she doesn't allow open discussion, you end up with these echo chambers, is it's the women that really suffer, not the men. And that's the only particular reason why I'm saying this is a really odd place to be having that argument, as I'm basically saying that women need to be helped a bit by allowing them not to be exposed to this material.
Well, not to be treated like victims and to reject that narrative. But Kat, Karen has come back, so
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she's in next in queue. So Karen. Oh, are you, Rachel? Well, I should probably introduce Karen since she actually is on the show
Karen
now.
Strawn.
So. Karen Strawn, Girl Writes What? She's awesome.
Yeah, I'm here. My mom had a horrible emergency with her new router, and we needed to fix that. So yeah, that's why I'm late. But go ahead, Rachel, and I have things to add definitely to this part of the discussion. But you go ahead.
Yeah, recently, actually, even on my Tumblr, which is naughtynerdist.tumblr.com. Anyway, I actually talked about how by a lot of the gaming media, a lot of this gaming journalism, by them trying to really be progressive and forward-thinking in defending Anita from having to ever be criticized, they are essentially being sexist because they are saying that she is not strong enough to handle criticism like a man. Yep. They're going out of their way to say, okay, well, she can do all of these things, like a man. She can be a critic of games, but she should never, ever, ever have to face criticism because they will not see her as anything but a delicate flower that is suddenly being attacked.
Now, she's assuming the role of a child. They're the father. Which
Exactly.
is the patriarchy.
So, I wouldn't call it patriarchy. I would call it people, just because it's the same people who are doing it are often doing it because they don't want to appear sexist. A lot of them are aligned, with the same kind of ideology. They believe the exact same things as Anita, but in trying to protect her, they are essentially saying that she is not strong enough to be on equal footing.
But there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing counterintuitive about being in line with the patriarchy and being protective of women in particular. In fact, there was a master's thesis that somebody linked to on Reddit. Some young woman had done her master's thesis on benevolent sexism, and the results of her experiments in her particular study were that what she did was she got the test subjects to observe a man's behavior, right, and then predict whether how likely he would be to do things like beat his wife or deny a woman a promotion based on her sex and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And the overwhelming results across genders that these subjects came up with was that men who did not treat women better than they treated men were misogynists, right? That men who were not benevolently sexist toward women were actually hostilely sexist toward women. Men who treated women the exact same way they would treat a man were considered to be sexist against women. And the only thing that mitigated that effect a little bit, not completely, but a little bit, was if it was made clear to the subjects that the man was eschewing benevolent sexism in the service of women's equality. So for a benevolently sexist goal, right?
Okay,
Which
Karen, before you go on, I want to add something. I want to add a wrinkle.
Matthew are also eschewing benevolent sexism for a benevolently sexist goal, and that's why not everybody hates you, right?
Oh, jeez, Karen.
No, Karen, like you care about the women. You do. You just said like it's the effect on the women. I don't think the effect on the women is the most harsh thing. I don't think the effect of infantilizing women in the gaming community is most harmful toward women. I think that the greater harm is toward men, right? Now, I'm not going to argue that it doesn't feel that the greater harm is toward women, because most people would feel that the greater harm of anything is toward women, because we all are benevolently sexist at heart. And if we aren't being benevolently sexist, we think we're being hostilely sexist toward women, right? And this is something that you have to be completely and totally and utterly detached from your emotions to even identify as something that as a trap that you're falling into, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the overwhelming negative effects of all of this bullshit that's going on in gaming with Anita Sarkeesian and all of these things, like, I mean, honestly, she basically said, right, in her analysis of Hitman Absolution, right, not only is the player, right, the every player, the everyman, the 377,999,999 players plus one out there, not only are they being invited to murder the strippers and desecrate and violate their murdered bodies and sexualize their murdered bodies, not only are they being invited to do that, they cannot help but do that. This was her thesis. They cannot help but do that.
But that's just wrong, though, because in a game like Hitman, you're actually penalized
for
killing civilians.
Look at how she is describing it. You're penalized for it. You're discouraged from doing it. That was probably the only original footage, Let's Play footage, in any of her videos, because I can't see where she would have found it. Right?
No, Thunderfoot, in an analysis, Thunderfoot actually went through about 60 playthroughs of that exact game. He only found one. He only found one that killed the bouncer, and that was it.
Yeah. And so, but she's saying in this thing that because realism, you are being able to treat the female bystanders like you treat the male bystanders. In other words, you have the option to kill them if you're willing to take the penalty, right? Okay?
Yeah.
Just like you do with any male bystander. Okay? So you're treating women exactly equally. You have the option of doing that, even though nobody fucking does that. She interprets it as not only is the player invited to do so, but the player cannot help but give in to a intoxicating concoction of blah blah sexualizing necrophiliac blah blah blah. Right?
Well, it's basically
and
the whole
that it's women who are being harmed most by this, not the men.
Okay, Karen.
Robble,
Karen.
guys.
It's okay.
Back on topic.
Yeah,
on topic.
It was a really great rant, and everybody.
Every player that's being smeared by that. Not every male player who is being called a freaking necrophiliac by Anita Sarkeesian. That's not the issue. It's the women. I agree. Women are harmed by Anita Sarkeesian, by Zoe Quinn, by all of these double standards, by letting women off the hook, by infantilizing them, by treating them like children and never holding them accountable. I agree women are harmed by this, but I do not agree that women are more harmed by this. I don't.
I would have to agree with Karen, but Matt, Kat has been waiting a long time.
Yeah, no, Kat should speak.
And I wanted to add something to Karen's rant, and it's really pertinent. When women experience benevolent sexism, they're more likely to self-objectify, and that's actually done. That has actually statistically proven. And I'll cede the floor to Kat. I just thought that was something that should be mentioned. Yeah.
No, I was just going to, add to that, where basically what I was seeing is this constant, as far as Sarkeesian goes, and a lot of militant, modern feminist movements, is this constant, basically brainwashing. And it's this whole idea that you have no free will. It's the cult mentality. You have no free will. You are compelled to do this horrible thing. It's not that you have the option to, and most people, even in a video game scenario, are decent folk and aren't going to do it regardless, whether they get penalized or whatever. Yes, I will completely admit that playing Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row, I loved beating the crap out of everybody, including the hookers. But in a game like Hitman, it wouldn't even occur to me to do that, because that's just not part of the mindset of the game and how I play. But with this whole idea of you are compelled, if you are given the option to do something horrible, you are going to want to do it. And that's why you need the group to save you from these evil thoughts, to save you from this horrible thing. It's the same thing of with AA, where yes, I know AA has helped a tremendous amount of people, and I know people that they have helped. I have family members that they have helped, and it's a wonderful thing. But I've had people tell me that I'm an alcoholic, that I just don't know it. I don't drink. I can count on one hand how many times I have gotten drunk in my entire lifetime. I don't like alcohol, yet people will say that because I am not a member of AA, I am an alcoholic. I just don't know it yet. And it's that mentality. It's this idea of if you're not one of us, you are against us, and you are not. And they try to brainwash people into their way of thinking, and that is one of the things that the social justice warriors and Anita's videos are attempting to do, is to brainwash people into thinking that this weird world of evil and misdeeds due to masculinity exists, when really it's a fight against free will and the freedom of choice.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to define the argument for the people listening really quickly, and then I'm going to bring it back to Gamersgate if nobody minds.
Yeah, please do. We did get on a tangent, didn't we?
Okay. So what you're doing is what she's doing is she's moving it away from a free speech issue into a health risk issue. That if you define it as, if you're playing these games, you're being pulled to do that against your will, what that suddenly becomes is that doesn't become a free speech. It's not about free speech anymore. It's is that this is a risk to public health. Now, why this is important to return to Gamersgate is a lot of the criticism that's being kind of levied is actually mediumly legitimate criticism. The relationship between people giving money and the people doing the reviews should be different. It should be spelled out with each particular one. To prevent that conversation, what it seems to be doing is they seem to be pathologizing the entire behavior of all gamers. So all gamers are horrible misogynists, thus we don't have to listen to them, and that they endanger the public. And it's a really interesting way of limiting free speech.
Yep.
No, it's an easy way to demonize somebody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then just control the community. Let's see, Rachel, I believe that you had...
The thing that I had to say that I didn't get to finish on was, the thing about it is the problem with a lot of these arguments that are being made by, the social justice warriors is that a lot of them rely entirely on this almost superstitious thinking. It relies on two things being true. One, that games cause violence, and two, that games are capable of causing sexual violence. And there's really no evidence of either of those. And instead of really having an engaging talk and bringing the topic to the place that women can have, or that they already have in gaming, they're instead, causing this crazy hysteria, like, oh my gosh, are the youth suddenly going to become these crazy psychopaths? Are they going to become sociopaths? Are they going to rape and murder people because they saw it in a video game? There's no evidence of any of those things. And instead of having the conversation be about the people, the women and the minorities who already have a place in gaming and who are trying to break into gaming and who are just as good as everybody else out there, they're sitting there and saying, no, everybody in here, all of these gamers, people at every part of this, from development to critiquing, are misogynists or bigots at heart. And that's really crazy.
Well, it's a tool of control. I really don't... The problem, I think, is when we start to think that it's anything other than what it is, that it really is about morality, then your brain turns into corkscrews. It's not. It's just about controlling people. But I wanted to point out something about the argument, which group has it worse, men or women.
I don't think we need to have that conversation.
I would agree.
I
have gone through a period of time where I would have been like, oh, there's no way.
That's the
Men have it worse.
Olympics right there.
Men have it worse.
That doesn't need to be a part of the discussion about a lot of these. And that's the thing. That's a wonderful thing about Gamergate, is that it has drawn together people who have completely different belief systems, or who normally wouldn't ally together, to come together and have sane discussions. That's the wonderful thing about all this.
Yeah, but
all of us are,
to be honest,
opposed to the oppression of Olympics.
Personally, I think men have it worse. Now, that's my personal opinion, but the reason why I don't believe it's necessarily to focus on that is I believe the solution is pretty much the same. You need to start recognizing women's agency and recognizing men's vulnerability. And honestly recognizing their agency to fail, their agency to be villains, their agency to have flaws, their agency to make absolutely as immoral, sociopathic, psychotic, evil, and brutal choices as men. And that's the solution. And it really doesn't matter which side is hurting more when the solution is the same, in my opinion. And I know that some people here don't really like the idea of talking about a solution, because once you start talking about a solution, then you might go dark places with it. But I'm gonna cede the floor to Hannah. Go ahead, Hannah.
Well, on the idea of who has it worse and everything, I think I have to agree with you on the idea of men having it worse, simply based on the fact that if you take one group of people and you say they have to have all the agency and they have to have all the responsibility, and you take another group of people and you say they have no agency and they can't take care of themselves, you're basically enslaving both groups of people to those concepts, but you're also enslaving one group of those people to the other group. And I think the group that gets enslaved to the other group definitely has it worse than a group that the first group is being enslaved for their benefit. And I really don't consider that a patriarchal system. That's more of a pity system, and it really doesn't put men in charge. It just puts men in debt. But that's really not the thing. I had actually wanted to touch back on the idea really briefly of video games causing violence, and in particular sexual violence. And this discussion about media causing violence is old. It's not new. It's been around since like before I was around. But I mean, I remember people talking about this when I was a child, about violence on television causing violence. And oh my God. And now I will not say that I like MTV. Never really have been a big fan. I liked Headbangers Ball. But the furor over MTV when it came out, my God, it was amazing. My mother went ballistic. There were a set of parents in my neighborhood that literally got MTV banned from our community's television system unless you paid to have it piped into your house, because it was scary and new and might cause kids to do strange things and use drugs and blah, blah, because, they weren't doing that before, right? And the truth is, there is a great deal of human violence that has gone away over the years, and it isn't that these violent games or violent television shows or violent cartoons. It was violent cartoons when I was a kid. That was the big deal. None of this stuff causes violence. In some ways, it highlights to us how sensitive we've become to the impact of violence on other people, and how much we hate that impact. And to really illustrate how, in some ways, the human race has become less violent, even though there is a great deal of violence that still takes place in the world. It's been really brought to our attention by recent news of beheadings and so on taking place in this war. It's the fact that it is no longer common to use things like drawing and quartering someone as punishment. We don't tar and feather scam artists and run them out of town on a rail, which, by the way, was a deadly punishment. We don't hang people to death in first world countries, and we
At least
argue
not legally.
over not legally, and we argue over whether or not the penalties that we do use for death penalty are even valid penalties for a civilized society. And there are many of us that are gaining footing arguing that they're not. And for a group to turn around and say that human violence is caused by something that's been around for something that is for less than a blip on the radar of human history, and a blip during which we're actually, towards our fellow human beings, not as violent as we were during our earlier history as a species, it's just ludicrous, and it's very short-sighted, very solipsistic.
One of the things that got me, because when Rachel was talking as well about whether video games cause sexual violence and all of this stuff, or they cause misogyny, everybody laughed Jack Thompson out of town because Jack Thompson was full of shit.
Yeah.
Right? And he was. And 9 federal courts found that he was full of shit. Right? 9 times in federal court, it was found that, there was no link between, there was no causation between watching violent media or playing violent games led to people acting out in violent ways. And you see this too with Andrea Dworkin, she famously sort of posited that porn trains men to rape, right? But what's happened since porn made it onto VCRs and then onto the internet? What's happened since the advent of the VCR? Since men didn't have to go into XXX theaters to watch porn. Oh, the incidence of rape has gone down 80 to 90% since then, right? Like feminists have, and these cultural critics, these sort of postmodernist critical theory junkies, right? They have the causality backwards. They have it backwards in everything, right? They say culturally imposed gender roles are the reason why men and women behave differently, right? No, men and women behave differently, and that led to culturally imposed gender roles, right? They argue that patriarchy is a cultural construct that subordinates women and puts them in the home and makes men take on the dirtier and riskier tasks and the heavier tasks, right? No, the way men and women are is why men ended up in power, right? Not men are in power and therefore they impose this system from the top down, right? Like they have the causality backwards on so many things, and they have it backwards when it comes to, to mass media, right? The reason why people consume games that have violence, especially games that have, not games that have sexual violence towards women in a bubble, but games that employ sexual violence against women where somebody gets to put a stop to that, right? Where the protagonist puts a stop to it, right? All of those things, right? The reason why the tropes work is because they're shortcuts, and they're shortcuts for a reason, right? Like you don't have to you don't have to go through a logical process, A to B to C to D, etc., to realize that a guy who beats a woman just for kicks or for convenience or to deal, to get what he wants, right, is a scumbag who deserves to die. You don't have to go through any kind of process. You just feel it. You just know. You just know that he's a scumbag and you want to hurt him, right? That's why the trope works, is because we're primed to jump all the way from A to Z without any of those pesky middle steps, right? Because we feel it in our amygdalas, not in our logic center, but in our amygdala, right? That's why those things work. And getting into what Matt was talking about as far as, women consume the same types of porn that men consume. Of course they do. Of course, because women and men, it's not like men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We're both from Earth, right? And we both evolved in the same environment with the same conditions and in sort of a complementary / adversarial relationship with each other, right? And so, yeah, I've seen it. The exact same themes that feminists find hideously objectionable in visual porn, visual-oriented porn for men, right? Those sort of dominance themes, male dominance, holding the woman down, shoving her face into the pillow, all of those kind of themes. Those are all the exact same themes in the most popular women's written erotica, right? And when feminism came in and said that's not acceptable in mainstream romance, what happened? It got shunted down into even more heavily eroticized subgenres of erotica and erotic romance, right? Where you have capture romance and abduction romance and bondage romance and questionable consent romance and all of these themes that are even more graphically eroticized than mainstream romance fiction, right? Way more hardcore and have an extremely loyal and devoted readership,
No,
Yeah.
it's important to understand that yes, that a lot of the erotic fiction that isn't basically visual based is often written by women for other women.
And it has the exact same themes that visual porn does.
My argument would be that a lot of the themes that you mentioned you're completely right about. You can tell what's being written by a man and what's being written by a woman, and there is clearly different content that both enjoy. The thing is that it isn't based upon the violence, or it isn't women being in the submissive role.
All I know is that when it comes to genres of porn, written porn for women, erotica for women, male dominating, female, like sort of the dom sub model. Male dom, female sub is the #1 best-selling combination.
No, and I'd argue that the inverse.
Male
I've actually seen what Karen's talking about.
50 Shades of Grey is all I'm going
Yeah,
to
okay, guys.
Elbows.
Right? We can't. Let's Karen, we got to get through some more segments.
Female dom, male sub is the least popular of all among women, right?
Yeah, so that's more popularity
guys
among
actually, guys really like that a lot. As somebody who's written some of those, especially with partners in role play, that is the thing that I had most requested. They're like, listen, I don't want to be the person dominating. I want to be dominated.
Yes,
so
men.
That's
men.
Okay, guys.
But I'm talking about
but return to Gamer's Gate. Yeah, returning to Gamer's Gate. Yeah.
Yes, tangent.
Before we do that, let's get Crystal in. Can you be brief, Crystal? Just make a brief comment.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna agree that it's definitely, I've written erotica too, and it's definitely when girls write or women write it, it's definitely male dom, female sub.
Yeah. But let's move on to the next segment, and hopefully it's gamer related. Or if it isn't, that's okay too, right?
Oh gosh.
Well, it's fine, Sean. Fine.
Okay. All right. College men mocked on Salon article. A growing number of college men are giving up on hookup culture, with colleges making efforts to make it more and more difficult for legal consent to take place. Some of these men are choosing to opt out of college sex altogether. It's easy to understand why. Many of them feel that colleges are placing far too much responsibility on them to stop rape culture. With college assemblies like She Fears You, it's easy to see how these men came to that conclusion. A recent Salon article is practically making fun of the Bloomberg News piece discussing it, writing this, quote, according to this piece, heightened awareness about sexual assault on college campuses and a greater move towards justice for survivors has made some college men's boners shrink in terror. We are, it seems, meant to feel alarmed at these shrinking boners. They find the fear men have of being falsely accused to be unwarranted, laughable even, choosing instead to say that there are many ways to have consensual college sex. However, they don't take the regretful sex and false allegations into account in the slightest. A false claim can cost a male student scholarships and have him kicked out of college without a shred of evidence. But instead of considering this very real occurrence, Salon, as always, chooses to ignore the problems of men and society's double standards. Discuss.
This is a perennial topic for us.
Yes, it is.
I find it disgusting that yet again it has to be reduced to the genitals. Oh, penis, therefore bad. Penis, bad penis.
The thing I want to start out with is this, and this is something that people don't talk about in this discussion, period. And I know we might have brought it on at least once on this show, but this is something very important. This is something very important to talk about that almost no news articles cover, and that is the fact that when you get blackout drunk, okay, what happens to the brain is not that you forgot, it's that you are so drunk that the part of the brain that records memory has stopped recording memory. It simply has not recorded any memory at all. So if a woman wakes up, or a man wakes up, the next morning and they don't remember how they got in the bed of somebody else and they were blackout drunk, there's a reason why they don't know how they ended up there.
All right, I can speak to this. Not because I've been blackout drunk, but because I grew up in an area that was largely German and Irish. I mean, I'm in Ohio. I grew up in Northwest Ohio instead of Northeast Ohio, but it's pretty much the same heritage. And drinking was, like the state pastime. There really wasn't a whole lot of other things to do. And there were always parties, and there was always, like the Steubenville story didn't surprise me greatly because that drinking culture has been around for as long as I've been around. To the point where when I was very young, a friend of our family saved one of his classmates' life after she drank a bunch of shots and then went out to her car and had her heart stop because of alcohol poisoning because it all hit her system at once. And this is something that is very common. I used to be a designated driver frequently because I was not a heavy drinker. And I wasn't a drinker before it was legal for me to drink because my parents would have killed me. But I've watched people behave in ways when they were at that blackout stage that you would have no idea that they were drunk to the point where they would not remember the next day what they were doing. They were silly, but they were not significantly sillier than they were when they were not too drunk to remember things the next day.
Yes.
And they were sloppy, but they were not significantly sloppier than they would be were they to be able to remember things the next day. And they were not passed out drunk. They were not stumbling around, unable to control themselves drunk, but they were uninhibited. And quite frequently, there was a lot of activity between people that would not have taken place had they been entirely sober. But both parties were drunk, not just the girls. And the idea that men are more capable when they're drunk, the idea that they should be more responsible when they're drunk, the idea that they should in any way take on the responsibility for other people when they're drunk is absolutely ludicrous because they're just as vulnerable when they're drunk as women are. And
if I were a feminist, I'd be married.
Yeah.
Because my boyfriend has asked me to marry him 3 times.
Oh, and you can't say no. Where's your agency?
When he has been so drunk that I know he will not remember the next day. And when I say we should talk about this tomorrow, he would act just kind of hurt that I wouldn't say yes immediately, right? He would be like heartbroken that I wouldn't just say yes.
You ignored his right to consent.
Yeah, I know. I totally violated his right.
You horrible, horrible bitch.
I know.
How can you say no?
Haven't you ever heard of
I didn't say no. I basically said if you feel the same way in the morning, yes. Right? And then in the morning I would say, do you remember anything about what we talked about last night? And he'd say, sorta. And I said, if you ask me to marry me when you're drunk one more time, I'm just going to march you down to the courthouse right then and there. Right? And he hasn't done it since. So there must be some shred of consciousness.
I once agreed in my sleep to get married. I talk in my sleep. Now everybody knows I talk in my sleep. But I once agreed in my sleep to get married. And the poor guy did not realize that I was asleep. And when he did later realize I was asleep, he was like, oh, well, that's the real you talking through. And my friends had to explain to him that I also claimed to be president of the universe in my sleep.
Well, I know.
It's a similar thing. I mean, you do things you would do when you're blackout drunk. But
I know there's a part of my boyfriend that would really like to lock this in. He would really like to just like secure it, right? He would. There's a part of him that's a little bit insecure that comes out when he's vulnerable, right? When he's been drinking is one time when he's feeling vulnerable. where he would really, really, really like to just lock everything in, and therefore I could never leave him.
I'd like to see Karen in a wedding dress, because I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah. No.
Oh, she was a beautiful little wedding dress.
I think we really need to keep we need to keep it on track.
Okay, but being on topic, the problem is because there is that gray area, and that is the gray area that I think a lot of people don't talk about. There is no real gray area in sexual assault. It's a terrible crime. It absolutely is 100% a crime that is committed by terrible people. However, when we have a situation where somebody wakes up the next morning and they don't remember how they got into somebody else's bed, and then they assume that they were raped as a result, that is a very real possibility. And these men are opting out of all of that mess. They said, no,
why not?
I'm just not gonna hook up with anybody, drunk or otherwise.
You know what the rhetoric
and
wise choice anyway.
It is.
But it's not something that should be happening because women have the power to point and shriek and the guy gets stepped on. It should be happening because we might start to realize as a society that hookup culture is not necessarily healthy for anyone.
Yeah, but the rhetoric, the mainstream rhetoric around this type of thing, right? With men saying, you know what, I'm just going to opt out of the whole hookup culture. I'm just going to fap to my porn and actually study, because that's what apparently university is for, now that I think about it, right? The whole rhetoric around it from feminists is, it really smacks of, what are you, afraid of a girl? What are you, scared of a girl? Right? What are you, chicken?
Okay.
You
yeah,
pussy?
all right, Karen, let's, I can hear Matt wants to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, generally speaking, what we tend to focus on here is just open discussions of the issues. I don't particularly consider almost any sort of, basically mass stream consumable media to have a relatively good understanding of sexual politics.
Or anything.
I do find that when you're talking about hookup culture, first of all, if you do proper analysis of it, it's really just an imaginary construct that people create. That the assumption is that they don't want to have an emotional connection with the person, so that when they engage in sexual intercourse, it won't hurt the rest of their relationship. That doesn't it tends to have similar effects. What it is it's just not people wanting. People being too busy or not wanting to put into the focus into having a relationship while still engaging in sexual practices. That tends to be what it is. I find that when you demonize just the male sexuality, you make the women feel uncomfortable about their needs. Two, what you basically do is you just skim all of the nice guys out of the pool, and then you take all of the people who don't really care to follow the rules. They're more likely to be in the pool.
And they're more aggressive about it too.
Yeah, and they're more aggressive about it. So it's not always the best thing. And what you really want to do is you always want to have an open policy where both people can express their needs, and you can understand that, again, not all consent will be verbal, but that you're still trying to get these signals from the partners. But the biggest thing about it is to not concentrate on fucking alcohol. And that it just seems to be, especially in the United States, where they have this foolish drinking age that's so high, it just becomes that parties when they're usually almost always talking about university-age people when they're talking about on-campus stuff because it's on campus. But it's just that alcohol, getting blackout drunk, and sexuality combine in such foolish ways. And that it seems that you can't be if you're engaging in one, you have to be engaging in all three at the same time somehow. And I think that separating that, or just having sort of moving it so that you've got a culture that's just not focused on making it difficult for both partners to consent, would be better. And that isn't meaning that you guys can't drink. Most sexual activity, some alcohol is involved. It's just not having these weird sort of things where they're all combined, that you're not allowed to discuss the relationship beforehand. The woman isn't allowed to specify her needs. Both members have to be intoxicated to the point where they can say to the other person that they're not just they didn't consciously know their actions, because neither's allowed to have sexual agency. It's just a huge recipe for rape and sexual assault to be happening, but the focus seems to be on just moving away from having an open discussion to making it so regulated that if you're having an open discussion, you basically have to remain a virgin, and then making it go into these drunken pick-up parties.
It's chasing this into a worse and worse scenario. And I would add that it also increases the risk of false rape accusation and does nothing for male victims of rape. But we need to move on to the next segment. And just to conclude this, I'm going to quote from Hannah now. One thing that needs to be said is that the bottom line on drunk sex is that we're once again seeing the definition of rape taken away from the intent to contravene a person's refusal in order to make it easier to accuse. So what she's saying is that we're seeing this once again inching away from the guilty mind standard, that somebody is actually intending to rape, and towards making it easier to accuse people of or someone of that intent.
Liability.
Yeah, towards strict liability. But we do have to move on, so I'm going to cue Rachel. Let's go into the next segment. Go, Rachel.
Woo! Okay. Should I go into the tyranny of home-cooked dinner or the fappening first?
Oh, the fappening first.
No. Let's save the fappening for the end, because everything with Amanda Marcotte is sort of a little bit tedious.
Oh,
yeah. The tyranny
before Amanda.
The tyranny of the home-cooked family dinner.
Oh, wait, just a sec. What did you say there, Karen?
I said I thought I might be able to sign off before Amanda Marcotte, before I was subjected to her bullshit.
I see.
No.
All right.
Yep.
Amanda Marcotte's recent article is probably one of the dumbest things she's ever written. She says that the home-cooked family meal is a stressful, unattainable ideal that simply isn't worth the hassle. That since women have erratic work schedules, that they shouldn't bother trying to make certain that their families have adequate nutrition. One must wonder what planet she's living on. She portrays the act of cooking sit-down meals for family as a job done by women, which is in itself oppressive. That stressed-out women are bogged down by a struggle to please their picky children, husbands, and boyfriends, all the while not offering an alternative. She mentions that many people simply cannot afford fresh ingredients, but they can hardly handle the expense of eating out all the time either. So what's an angry lady to do? Well, they could start by understanding that knowing how to cook can actually save time and money, because then regular household staples can become a variety of different meals, which is a valuable skill to have when you are broke with few resources. While not everybody can be Martha Stewart, cooking a meal of moderate difficulty is a life skill everyone should develop. Not every meal needs to be restaurant-worthy to be home-cooked. Not every meal needs to be complex to be sufficient. The reality of this situation is that fathers also cook in many households. Many family meals are a mix of canned goods, boxed items, and home recipes. It's true that not everyone can cook like 50s sitcom housewives, but it's also true that not everyone is letting that be the standard. But I guess when you're Amanda Marcotte, everything is oppression.
Oh my God!
This is some shit. I mean, what? All I could think of is next people being. Oh, sorry. Wait.
No, Crystal, you haven't spoken all week.
Oh, okay.
Evening. I don't know if it's because of your dance with the mute button or what.
I'll wait.
Or Spider Pig. or Spider Pig.
Maybe you have been speaking, but it's been muted the entire time. we've missed out on some truly wonderful Crystal rants tonight, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh man, I can't imagine. I really don't know. Okay, we had the "I'm not sorry" bullshit. We've had the "Don't call me bossy." Now we have the "I don't want to cook." Like, what do they want next? They want every man should carry me on his shoulders everywhere we go because I shouldn't have to use my legs because that's ridiculous. I mean, how would you not want to cook? I mean, exactly. First of all, it's more practical, and it costs less, absolutely, and it's healthier. So how is cooking oppressive when, first of all, men have been cooking since the dawn of time, but suddenly when a woman has to do it, it's oppression. I don't know. It's so much stupid. I can't.
What gets me too is like because I've been cooking since I was 10. Right? Like when I was 10, my mom went back to work, and my sisters and I, they were older than me. We had to take turns getting whatever it was in the oven or on the stove or whatever, peel potatoes, prepare vegetables, do all of that. Then when my parents got home, my mom and whoever that was their designated day would get everything onto the table, right? So I've been cooking since I was 10. Immediately after high school, I got hired as a professional cook. And I cooked in high-end restaurants for about 5 years. So I learned how to cook the more avant-garde types of things. I learned how to invent recipes. I was in a 5-star hotel. Every Sunday I used to have to come up with 5 or 6 brand new, unheard of as yet brunch items that, that was my job to come up with those, think them up, and implement them, right? So I did that for 5 years professionally, and here I am. I'm divorced. I had just moved here to Edmonton, and I'm dating a research oncologist whose wife had been a stay-at-home wife for the 8 years of their marriage before they had kids, and every year since. And I'm cooking a meal, and it was prime rib with broccoli and cheese and roasted potatoes and 2 other side dishes. And he's asking me, "How are you not stressed out? Do you need me to help? Do you need me to help? Why are you so calm?" And I'm like, "It's a roast and roasted potatoes and steamed vegetables, and I'm grating some cheese. How could that possibly stress me out?" And he said, "Well, this is like a full-fledged Sunday dinner. This is like a Sunday dinner like I would have back in Scotland." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, your mother lied to you when she was like Scotty on Star Trek The Next Generation. Oh, you cannot tell him an hour if you mean an hour. You have to tell him 3 hours. And then when you do it in an hour, then you look like a hero." Right? I honestly think, because as much as cooking professionally for 5 years took the love out of cooking for me, right? Now it's a chore. It just is. It's not an act of love. It's just a chore, right? But as much as that has occurred because I did it professionally, on the other hand, it ain't that hard, right? And I honestly wonder if some women act like it's 100 times harder than it is just because they want to get credit for doing something difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility.
It could be. I mean, I know that I always wanted to know how to do a lot of cooking, and the thing about it is I told myself as I got older that this is something I should learn how to do, so I made an active effort to try and learn some basic things. And the thing about it is that learning how to cook with very simple ingredients and making a lot of meals out of very simple things is very important when you are broke, which is what I have been for most of my life. So when she's saying, oh my gosh, these people simply cannot afford fresh ingredients, they simply cannot afford the ingredients to make meals for their family, it doesn't have to be massively complex. You can use stuff out of cans. You can have something from a can, you can have something from a box, and then you can have something that you cooked yourself as part of the meal. And the thing about it is not everybody has to have these elaborate meals all the time. It can be a couple times a week. It doesn't have to be, you know what I'm saying? She's portraying this as being something that only women do, and that it's women's responsibility to do it, and that because of that women are so stressed out that they should not even try. They should just forget it, because because no matter what they do, they're never going to be able to please everybody, so they shouldn't try. I'm like,
sounds like she's not a good cook, honestly.
Well, you gotta make a victimhood out of everything.
Okay,
Yeah,
or microwave some pizza rolls or something, because she didn't really give an alternative. She didn't really say she didn't really mention box items or stuff out of a can. I think she was trying to hint at, you should eat out. And that is like the worst possible thing you can do when you're poor, because it's so expensive.
All right, everybody. Kat has been trying to push her way in. Let's go ahead, Kat.
Just real quick. Me personally, I love to cook. I come home, I don't sit down, I don't lay down on the bed, I go into the kitchen. Seriously, that's how I, let off steam from a very stressful day, is I cook dinner. On my blog, I have a segment called Carpe Crustum, which is all on making pastries, because my mom was a pastry chef, and a professional pastry chef, and her rule was you have to be able to taste every calorie before you eat it, and that's always been my rule. But since I try to be healthy, or at least lose weight, I've been figuring out recipes on my own to make like amazing things that aren't going to kill you. It's really, I'm not kidding. I saw this article, I read it, and the first thing that popped into my head is, here is somebody who sucks at cooking, was tired of their family or whoever telling them, you're a shitty cook, and they've decided that they're going to vomit that all over the world, and they are going to justify it in every way they possibly can. As far as, cooking at home versus eating out thing goes, actually, it disturbs the hell out of me how many people, at least here in the United States, don't know how to cook something basic. I mean, and I'm not talking the dorm room ramen noodles in the microwave thing. I mean, you would think people can do that, but there are people out there where that's actually beyond their capabilities to do so. If it's not reheating leftovers, they don't know what to do. And what greatly illustrated this for me was the documentary Food Inc. And regardless of what you think about the rest of the documentary and what it talks about, the section on the family where every single solitary meal they have every single day comes from a fast food restaurant. And I believe they spent $12 a meal to feed a family of 4. And so $12, $24, $36 a day to feed a family of 4. And what they did is they took that amount of money and gave it to the family and took them to a grocery store and said, use this money to buy your food for the week. They had no clue what to do. They pulled out a head of lettuce, and the mom came and looked at the head of lettuce and said, oh, that's $1.25. That's too expensive. I can get a full hamburger for that much. Not even comprehending that a head of lettuce is going to make, it's going to be lettuce on hamburgers for like 2 weeks, In fact, what they wound up getting was frozen food and potato chips.
My ex, actually, he used to, he was a superintendent of an apartment building in Calgary like 25 years ago. And one of the things, the social workers came around to him and asked him if he would take some of the tenants in the building that were under sort of government care, some of them around, and show them how to shop. And he tried. He would have received money for each person he took around to the grocery stores. And he said after a few days, he gave up, right? Because they didn't want to learn. And I actually had an experience with a friend of mine, one of my best friend, essentially. She went down to the States, she got married, she had a baby, she came back up, and she ended up on welfare for 6 months. Until her baby was old enough and she had, she could leave the baby with the grandparents while she went to work, right? So she was on welfare for 6 months, and she had about $350 for the month to spend on things other than, rent and electricity and, phone and all of those things, right? And she asked me, like, how on earth do I do this? How do I do this? And I said, you just come shopping with me, honey. Right? And the very first time we went shopping, it was a case lot sale, right? So you could get a case of, like, Campbell's soup, 18 cans or something for, like, a really incredible price, right? So there's a case lot sale going on, and the grocery store actually would tabulate at the end of the bill, you paid, you saved. And meat and produce were not included in the savings, right? It was just the actual sort of non-perishable items that were included in the savings. And she saved more than she spent the first time, right? And that didn't include, and, honestly, I don't understand how it is that people cannot, how is it that you don't know that you can buy, like, a gigantic pack of chicken drumsticks and, like, lay them all out on a pan and drizzle olive oil on them and sprinkle them with sea salt and kind of wiggle them around to get them all greased up, stick them in a 375-degree oven for 20-25 minutes, right? Turn the oven off. By the time it's cooled down enough for you to, like, even pick up the pan with your bare hands, the legs are still hot enough to eat. They're cooked all the way through. They're nice and crispy on the outside. They taste good. They're healthy, right? Like, how do you not know that? How do people not know that the easiest possible thing that you can possibly cook is a roast? You put it, you take a roast, like a rib roast or something like that, a pork roast. You put it on a pan. You surround it with cut up red potatoes, right? You drizzle some olive oil, sprinkle some salt on it, stick it in the oven, 375 degrees. 2 hours later, you pull it out, and you have a meal. How do they not know that?
It's pretty insane.
It's like 5 minutes of prep.
And it just she wants to make victimhood out of anything. But we really need to move on to the next segment.
Again, I say she's a crap cook.
We really need to move on to the next segment.
Okay, the fappening.
Yes,
the fappening.
The fappening.
Oh gosh, that's what we're calling it.
Right now.
Oh gosh. The media is voicing its outrage over a massive leak of celebrity nude photos that was distributed onto the web. Many are calling it a full-blown sex crime and a violation of these celebrities' consent, while several others are making light of the situation, calling it the fappening. There is a great deal of misinformation floating around, but here's what we know for sure. Someone leaked a massive amount of nude celebrity photos onto 4chan, and in the chaos, a man named Brian Hamade tried to extort money from them through bitcoins. Quote, "It was so stupid. I saw a lot of people posting the actual leaks in Bitcoin addresses, and I've read a lot about Bitcoin and how they are valuable, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll get free Bitcoins." Quote, "I'm just an idiot who tried to pull one over on 4chan and lost big time and stupidly left this identifying information. They took my proof and backtraced it. It isn't remotely true. I'm not a hacker. I have no idea how the hell someone could hack into these accounts," unquote. The hacking he's speaking of is the hacking of iCloud photo storage, which is still being investigated. The truly ridiculous part is not merely the misinformation, but the hypocrisy of the media. The same celebrity gossip sites dispensing pictures of wardrobe malfunctions and racy photos appear to draw the line when it involves America's sweetheart, Jennifer Lawrence. PerezHilton.com, one of the many sites covering the recent events, have an article entitled Man Meet Monday, dedicated to posting leaked photos of male celebrities. This was posted a mere 2 months ago. So one must ask, where's the outrage? For many years, paparazzi have leaked pictures of nude celebrities, and celeb gossip sites have had no problems with that at all. But the moment it's Jennifer Lawrence, they figure it's time to have a conscience. I guess it's only a sex crime to them when it happens to a woman, and only when they aren't making money off of it. Discuss.
Oh my god. Like, okay, 2 words. Anthony Weiner.
Yeah.
Anthony Weiner, right? Like literally you had right wing conservatives lying in wait on his Twitter feed, right? He tweeted a link to a dick pic in boxers, not even a nude dick pic, to a woman on Twitter, right? Who had been flirting with him. And somehow, just somehow, a screenshot got taken in the 3 minutes before that tweet was deleted, and then somehow it got leaked to a right-wing news source, and then, oh, miracle of miracles, right? Fox News was on the scene when the police arrived to question Anthony Weiner about his completely innocuous conversation with a 17-year-old girl over Twitter, because there were right-wing conservatives who were making sock accounts and pretending to be underage girls, trying to lure him into incriminating himself, right, on Twitter, right? You know, and all of that, right? What was the gist in the mainstream of all of that? You know, innumerable dick jokes, innumerable wiener jokes, right? And all kinds of, there were dramatic readings of his sexual text messages, read out loud by guests on late night TV talk shows, right? To great comedic effect. And he ended up being strong-armed out of Congress, right? A second sex scandal of him tweeting or texting sexy stuff to some other random woman got him 5th place in the New York mayoral race, right? His political career is over. Everybody thought he deserved to not only lose his career, but to lose his wife and ever take him for everything he had, because he sort of kind of cheated on her, if you think sending, you know, pictures of yourself in your underwear is cheating, right? Okay. In this case, the sex was the entire scandal. And nobody had any sympathy for him. The only people who came close to defending him, his wife and Jon Stewart, his personal friend and former roommate, right? All for tweeting a link to a picture of himself with a boner in his boxers, right? You
Well,
know,
it does
so
show the
yeah,
difference.
a picture of him in his boxers with a boner gets leaked, and he is destroyed, and everybody feels righteous in destroying him.
Okay,
This really boils down very simply. This boils down to the difference in understanding of what's right versus what's reasonable to expect. And to be honest, or what's realistic. Let me put it that way: what's right versus what's realistic. And as far as I'm concerned, both men and women have the same right to the same expectations related to privacy in their own home, in their own phones, whatever. I have the right to expect that somebody's not going to break into my apartment and steal my stuff. But I also, it's reasonable for me to take practical measures to avoid that. And the same thing with I drive a vehicle that is actually easier to break into with a Slim Jim than it is to unlock with my key. I don't leave my camera in it because I know that.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line there. Don't put nude pictures on your phone. Not because you don't have the right to expect that somebody will not break into your phone and steal it, but it's unrealistic to expect that criminals are going to recognize that right. And so you're going to have stuff broken into you're going to get broken into and stolen. That's just it.
Karen, we were at the end of the hour, so Rachel, finish your thought on this issue.
Yes. The thing about all of this is that people like paparazzi have been taking pictures, some of these of naked body parts of celebrities for a very, very long time. A very, very long time. Some of these people are on nude beaches, things like that, and we have no issues thinking, oh my gosh, look at this horrible look at this picture that they managed to take of this celebrity. But the moment it's personal photos leaked by somebody anonymous, it is a scandal. The moment it's a woman, the moment it's Jennifer Lawrence, our wonderful, adorable girl, then it's like, oh my gosh, everybody loses their minds. Even though we have sites like Perez Hilton, which are posting links to seeing the penis pictures of celebrity guys. And there are men among the photos that were released, that were leaked in the fappening. But people don't really care about those guys. Nope, they don't give a shit about them. They just care about the women. Even if the guys are somewhat famous too. Nobody cares. It's the hypocrisy and all of this. It's crazy.
The double standards.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, absolutely wrong. Of course it's wrong for them to do this in the first place. It's just that the way that the media is saying that they're so outraged when every month or so it's like, oh my gosh, we managed to get a picture of such and such's vagina because they weren't wearing panties.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. It's like when Gawker Media, at the exact same time that they were hosting like photo montages of what's her name, she's young,
Lindsay Lohan.
Lindsay Lohan's like beaver shots and nip slip photos and stuff like that, right? And then they go and they dox
Violent Acres, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whose job it was on Reddit to keep illegal upskirt photos off of Reddit. Right?
Yeah, it's the double standards.
They didn't just dox him; they demonized him and doxed him.
Okay, but guys, I know you guys are very passionate about this issue, but we are running out of. Yeah, I know you are. I can feel you straining at the leash to start. Yeah, but we don't have time. We're running up at the hard wall here, Karen. We.
Oh, fuck you, Allison. Fuck you.
I know.
No. Fuck you, SRS.
Yes, fuck you. Nobody will understand that reference. That's
well, Google it. It'll be the top thing that comes up.
Google.
Don't you know the internet is
SRS. But we need to end the show because we are coming towards the wall. Yeah, no. I know. The silly place. Every silly place must end, and every serious topic must also end.
No.
And
so we have a couple things. We have a couple things that we should absolutely say before we go. Which is thank you very much for the guests that chose to appear on this show.
Yeah, thank you to the Fine Young Capitalists. No. Thank you to the Fine Young Capitalists, and thank you to those guests who considered coming on the show because that was nice. I mean, to consider it is even a privilege. But and thank you to Christian, who is part of Tales from the Infrared, and I'm going to give him some time to make a plug. And thank you to Karen, thank you to Hannah, thank you to Crystal, thank you to Kat.
Thanks for Matt.
Your insights in the industry are always really, really great. Thanks to the Fine Young Capitalists. Thanks to all of our volunteers, our artists, Europa, Brian, Yule, Yan, Mike. Silly Place, definitely. Thank you to James, who always keeps the show running smoothly. Thank you to Rachel. Did I thank Rachel? Rachel is fantastic. She does almost all of the writing for the show and the research, so she's great. And thank you to Sage for the website. And if I'm missing anyone, it's just because I'm just ending the show. And and I just don't have. My brain is. You know what? It's dripping down. It's out of my ears. But I want to pull
That's
on
fine,
Christian.
Typhon. That's right.
That's
right.
I want to
That's
pull on
fine,
Christian to
Allison.
do a plug for Tales from the Inframed. I believe you'll be doing more Gamergate. Is that correct?
We will be actually Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be talking more on Gamergate, and we're hopefully going to be able to flesh that topic out a little bit more. So check that out. That's again Tales from the Infrared on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And the channel is, of course, live365/station/a voice for men. So direct your browsers there at the time that Christian has just said and have a listen, because he's got more to say on Gamergate. Unfortunately, we all have so much to say that he didn't get to say everything that he had to say, but that's the way we roll. Very, very loud and chatty. And
trilbies.
Trilbies, yes, the
And
trilbies.
the neckbeards.
And the neck, we all have them.
So good luck with that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's Crystal.
Do the thing, Crystal.
Do the
Spy
thing.
pig.
Do the thing.
Spy pig. Do the
Spy
thing.
pig.
Which
Do the thing.
thing?
Call!
Oh, that one.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio, radio with